afternoon, and welcome back to the Keiser Plus AI podcast. Ladies, gentlemen, and scholars, we have another incredible episode today. We have two incredibly distinguished guests. We have Mr. soon-to-be Dr. Juan Carlos Chavez with us, and also Dr. Otto von Feigenblatt. I'm going to read their bios really quick because they are really distinguished individuals. I'm going to try to keep this brief because I could not possibly summarize everything that these gentlemen do. But I'm going to start with Dr. Otto Federico von Feigenblatt. His Excellency Ambassador Otto Feigenblatt holds a bachelor's degree in social science from Rasmussen University. I apologize for butchering that, in Asia Pacific. A master's degree in international development. All these universities are Chulalongkorn University, Bangkok, Thailand, and a Doctor of Philosophy in Conflict Analysis and Resolution. I know this one from Nova Southeastern University. A Doctor of Education and Leadership and Education from Nova Southeastern University, and two postgraduate degrees in Social Justice and International Relations, and a master's degree in Anthropology and Archaeology from Harvard University. Ambassador Feigenblatt has completed a postdoctoral fellowship with the University of San Jose, Costa Rica, with a focus on management and leadership. Dr. Otto is a corresponding academic from the prestigious Royal Academy of Economic and Financial Sciences of Spain, an academic of honor from the Royal Academy of Doctors of Spain, a numbered academic from the National Academy of History and Geography from Mexico. His Majesty King Philip VI of Spain knighted him with the Order of Isabella the Catholic for his contributions to the social sciences. He currently serves as the Dean of Global Relations at the Latin Division for Keiser University, which we are very proud to have him. And since July 2023, Dr. Otto serves as Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Observer of the International Youth Organization of the Ibero-America to United Nations. Moreover, the Secretary General of the Andean Parliament appointed him the Advisor for Education. So please welcome Dr. Otto. It is a pleasure to have you on the podcast, sir. If you could, I know I read your bio, but if you could quickly summarize what you do in terms of your everyday, let's say, diplomacy, academic work. I know you're an incredible researcher, someone with great fame, but also how that applies to artificial intelligence as we enter this new era of technology.
Thank you, Dr. Keiser, for a very long introduction. But basically, I write, I do consulting, and I also give advice to governments about the AI policies. And of course, I use AI myself to empower myself to be a better person. Let's put it that way. How do I use it? Well, I think starting with clerical tasks, there's no doubt that it makes me more efficient. It saves me a lot of time, especially with nitty-gritty small things that we have to do on a daily basis. And it also makes my research, especially basic research, a lot faster. So it frees up my mind and my schedule to do higher order thinking. And I've noticed in my own work that I can do more strategic thinking. I can focus more on higher order thinking when it comes to policy making, rather than just focusing on many small tasks that were basically eating up 20% of my day.
Perfect. And I will make sure to come back to the efficiency and stimulation of high order thinking that you were mentioning. I think you and Mr. Juan Carlos can talk a lot about that, especially in academia. I do want to take this opportunity, though, to introduce our other distinguished guest, Mr. Juan Carlos Chavez, who is an author, researcher, and professor specializing in creativity, human behavior, and an intersection of psychology, biology, and technology. He's currently pursuing a doctorate in psychology, holds a master's degree in business, and a specialization in creativity, a bachelor's degree in communication. He is the author of 6 books. Both of these gentlemen are prolific writers. Both have books. Make sure to look them up and buy their books. That's a humble plug for both of these gentlemen. But of his 6 books, including Homo Creativis, Creative Intelligence, and Strategic Biointelligence, his work explores creativity, decision-making, innovation, and biological foundations of human behavior, bringing together insights from psychology, neuroscience, philosophy, and economics. Beyond his research and writing, Juan Carlos advises organizations, teaches graduate level programs, and speaks internationally on creativity, artificial intelligence, leadership, and human development. Welcome, Mr. Juan Carlos Chavez. Again, it is an honor to have you on the Keiser Plus AI podcast. If you could briefly discuss how you're leveraging AI in your daily occupational endeavors.
Thank you very much, Dr. Keiser. Yes, of course. It's difficult to make a reduction on everything for what I use AI, especially thinking first of the potential and second of the little the little tactics that helps you go without you even noticing to take things to the next level. But I'll try to synthesize. In general, it has to do with what I call the formula of creativity, which is integrating generation of ideas. That's the first step. So it helps you with your own intuition, to say it like that, with more disruptive, the proper term is stochastic ideas, like probabilistic, but with a direction and with an ample range. That would be generation. Then with reflection, to be able to focus rationally on your ideas. Is this a good idea? Does this make sense? Is this coherent? So that's the second level. Then the third level is iteration and integration. This is very interesting because this generating and reflecting a lot of times makes your ideas more potent. So that's another level. And then the next level will be the metacognitive level. Think about your thinking, but in this case with the AI, help you understand your own thought processes through AI. That would be the meta control. So those are basically the four things. And this applies to everything, to little choices and to deep ideas. So I hope I made a good synthesis of this.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. And actually, it lends me to my next question, which I'll kick over to Dr. Otto and Juan Carlos. I would love for you to answer this as well. Both of you are distinguished professors and researchers. Academia right now is at a crossroads. What I see is a dichotomy when it comes to universities, those who are trying to be more AI forward, and those like my alma mater, unfortunately, with George Washington University, which I read wants to blue book their way out of the AI era, which I do understand. But I think what the heart of the challenge is that academia is concerned about this disruptive technology stripping away what Dr. Otto said it does do very well, creating critical thinking, creating creativity, as you mentioned, Juan Carlos. I just think the challenge is we have to modernize the way we teach. So I'm curious, Dr. Otto, what are your thoughts on that? How do you get AI into the classroom and help students learn, stimulate the critical thinking, but then also ensure that they don't go into the workforce? Yeah, they can write a really pretty paper, but it doesn't mean anything, that they have true skills. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that.
I think that the history is cyclical, and we are going back to a more student and teacher-centric moment in that a teacher needs to be a better teacher. The teacher needs to understand the student a lot better because you have to engage in a deeper dialogue with the student. We are completely leaving behind the industrial model. So in a way, AI forces us to understand our students better, for us as teachers to prepare for the actual class, to meet them where they are. Rather than completely changing education, we are returning to a more human education, to a moment when we truly focus on the person and we didn't see a number. We saw an actual human being who wanted to learn and who was exploring many challenges, ideas, the same as we are. So I think that AI is going to empower us to do that. It's going to free the teacher from many of those mundane tasks that I was mentioning before, to allow us to have a dialogue and to try to make mistakes together and to brainstorm with the help of this amazing tool, and that way teach us to think. And that's going to prepare them for the real world much better than that industrial model that we were relying on.
I would completely agree. One of the things I've said on the podcast previously, one of the promises of AI is reduce the bandwidth concerns that we all face in our everyday lives, but also stimulate engagement. There's so many things with content dissemination, grading, advising, uh, for basic mundane tasks, not, hey, let me know a little bit about your background, your professional ambitions. That's not what we're talking about. But then you really can get to the heart of what it is to be a teacher. And I love that answer. Going back to kind of a classical educational model. And
Yes.
I would certainly agree. I think there's a lot of advantages to that. Uh, Mr. Juan Carlos, would you want to touch on that? Is there any thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, something very interesting that Dr. Otto is implying is that AI mirrors our own humanity. You see, like when you understand how to use AI, you actually are seeing your own reflection in terms of how we think, what we think, because AI is made by and for humans. It didn't came up out of nothing. It's our own thinking processes mirrored in a screen. So when you really go deep on this, it actually helps you understand how you're thinking. This is the classic metacognition exercise, which is like the key concept. And in terms of teaching, it shows you how you teach. It shows you how you learn. It shows you how you think, how you act. So when you are able to use this tool correctly, you are actually analyzing your own cognition. So that's very interesting. And of course, imagine this has a lot of applications in the classroom, from instruments for the teacher to instruments to the student.
Well, and one of the things we know about AI now, it learns you. The more that you use it, the more it learns the user. You
Yeah.
can even program it to refer to you however you want to be referred, or be a thought leader or a consultant, or a nagging friend if you would want that for some weird reason. You could do these things, right? So yeah, let's talk about, you both are an interesting pair in that you're globalists, in that sense, in that you are multicultural, you work in different global contexts, not just, let's say, an American context. My joke before we got on the podcast is this is the Central American podcast, because not where you reside, but then also you span so many different geographies and cultures. I'm curious, what do you see? We typically look at AI from an American central perspective, like many things. Ethnocentrism is common in every culture. But what do we see in the rest of the world when it comes to AI integration? Is the rest of the world embracing this? Do we see AI going further in different countries in education, for example? Let's go Juan Carlos first and then Dr. Otto.
For sure. Well, I can talk about Mexico, which is where I reside. In Mexico, it's going very slow. Like, I don't think that in contrast in the US, it's going very fast at all. Like in general terms, like in the general population, of course, the advancements in the niches are, I mean, you have the frontier in the US for sure. But in terms of general population, I'm not seeing yet this big. I don't see the adoption that we should logically be seeing. Not even in the U.S. and in Mexico, it's even slower for sure. Whenever I ask in my sessions, who is like who uses, for example, LLMs constantly, not everyone like raises their hands. Some of them are even starting to only by now to understand or to use LLMs. So we are pretty behind. And then when you go all the other way around to AI agents, the conversation is over. Like majority of the persons don't even know what an AI agent is, don't say use it, and don't say develop it, which is the future, the present and the future, developing and using or aiding your work, your thinking, etc., through AI agents. So I think the frontier is going farther and farther and farther away from the general average base really fast. in any country, outside the US or the first world countries, it's even worse. So I think that's a big difference, but you can see it in any country, in all, like, globally speaking.
Well, in the
Doc-
case of, oh, sorry. In the case of Puerto Rico and South America, which is where I'm working most of them right now, in Puerto Rico, there is a lot of investment in that. They're really promoting it in lower schools and high schools, especially co-pilot, integrated into the whole public school system. But there is a lot of anxiety, at least in policy making, as to how this can affect the labor market. So what I've noticed is that, yes, they want to jump in this revolution. You know, they understand the productivity and everything that you can gain from it. But at least from a government perspective, what they're worried about is how are they going to transition millions of people into a new age, pretty much, of jobs, and how are they going to help them, you know, because it goes beyond just awareness raising. Is how are you going to integrate them into that economy and how to help them benefit from this too.
Thank you for sharing your experience. My conversations have been mostly limited to Vietnam and Nicaragua. What I find is there is general interest, there is general dabbling, but depending on the country, probably Nicaragua more so than Vietnam, it's an accessibility issue. Some of the frontier models and the LLMs are cost prohibitive. For Nicaraguans, my understanding is it's about 1,100 US dollars per year is the average annual wage. Well, it's going to be very hard to get a pro subscription to Claude. It's going to be cost prohibitive. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But I do see, at least, and you gentlemen are confirming this, affirming this, there is interest at least. And the rest of the road is coming to this understanding that the AI era is here, the humanoid era is here. And that's where I worry about American academia. We have the resources, we have the competencies, the capabilities, but the phobia is real too. You see graduation speakers get booed off stage because of the fear of job displacement, which Dr. Otto you so eloquently articulated. So perhaps, again, you guys are at the forefront of this technology, at the forefront of academia, forefront of industry as well. It's amazing that the two of you really are. I probably should have called you Renaissance men as opposed to globalists. I think global is the wrong connotation, but Renaissance men would be the appropriate thing. Maybe you can educate the audience. There's so many fears. How do we overcome those phobias, understanding that any technology could be used for good or bad, and embrace this change and get ahead? What would be your recommendation, maybe to both professors and students?
You want to start, Otto, or start?
If you want to start, go for it.
For sure. Okay. This is what I always promote in my sessions. So I have thought this a lot. Basically, what you need to do is understand there's three basic levels. The first one is very easy, LLMs, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Anthropic, Grok, which is trying to get on the competition back again, and just experiment with it. I mean, I think this sounds too basic, but as I said before, most people are not using LLMs constantly meaning every day, for deeper purposes than just asking something as a search tool. That's not what LLMs are for. That's like use Google, right? But LLMs can take you to like way more profound places. So knowing how to use LLMs, the general population is not using it correctly, or even in actually they use it like the adoption is very short. So that's the first recommendation. Use LLMs. Just interact with LLMs. Try to defy your own thinking. Try to find new ideas. Try to find solutions with this assistant that you have that is super intelligent and that can give you a perspective that you didn't have. So that's basic, right? Then the next level would be specialized apps. Specialized apps for generative AI, for example, creating videos, creating images, creating web apps. That's a very easy one that very few are using. No, for example, with Codex, or there are a lot of tools now, lovable.dev, that aids you with what is known as vibe coding, which is you code without knowing one word of coding, right? With your natural language, with English, with Spanish, etc. So you just are directing this. I will even say this team of genius programmers to do whatever you want from your keyboard, and super easy. So this specialized apps is accessible to everyone with an internet connection. You don't even need budget. This ChatGPT, you have it for free. Lovable, you have the free option, which is vibe coding. So most of those, you can find them without paying a membership. But people, or they don't know they exist, or they're not, this is my perception, they're not investing time in actually taking advantage of this. So that's why it's so important to let persons know this is available for you right now, right? So that's the second level. And then the third level is developing agents, AI agents. This is incredible. That's the future. That's what I was telling you. Like now with an agent, you can give this intelligence protocol the control of a computer. So basically what these AI agents can do today is whatever a human can do with a computer today. So imagine the implications for the personal or individual use, and the corporative, and the also in institutions in general, including universities. What we're going to see is institutions dealing or working with more agents than there are humans. And this doesn't mean, and with this I finish, this doesn't mean that we're gonna get rid of humans. This means that the companies, institutions, the persons that are doing this right are keeping the humans, but arming the humans with agents. So these humans have 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 agents, whatever it is, that makes them X time in orders of magnitude more productive. That is a future. That is a future. And in order to understand how to deal with these agents, you have to start now, because it's not the same thing how you need to talk or deal with, for example, someone in Vietnam and someone in Mexico or someone in the US. Wait, the same thing happens with an agent. You need to understand how to deal with agents. It's a socialization skill. So the sooner you start, the better position you will have in like today's context and in the short future, because this is advancing really fast. So those are the three levels that I suggest everyone should focus on. Start with number one, of course. Then number two is easy, is very available, and number three is more challenging. However, it's anyone with the disposition and with the hunger to do this can do it. It's not even budget limited. So those are my thoughts.
And I would agree, Juan Carlos. The first step is curiosity. Curiosity, intellectual curiosity. Experiment, try, take a course, go back to school and learn it. Because I agree with you. Whether it's vibe coding, basic LLM use, or actually automated workflows with agents, this is actually built for us to use. So it is something that a basic non-data scientist, software engineer can use and leverage. And I agree, the future of workforce, the current phase of workforce, is going to be putting agents next to humans, having humans in the loop, auditing the work, but also 10xing them. So I appreciate that. So same question to you, Dr. Otto. What are your recommendations? I'm going to expand it a little bit for you. Policymakers, faculty, and students. What would be your recommendation related to AI and
I
overcoming
would
those
say
fears?
that you have to explain it to them in their own terms. I think one of the challenges is that you always have these early adopters, and most higher ed professionals are inherently conservative, when it comes to the way they do their job. They say we do it this way because we've always been doing it this way. So it's very hard to get them to adopt these new technologies. But I think, and this is based on basic teaching theory, that if you can connect it to something they already do, it's a lot easier for them to do it. And I think AI is a technology that is perfectly suited for us to do this because it's very user friendly. It's kind of how we frame it. And I think that that's why, we still need to focus on that awareness raising. We need to meet many professors where they are, which might not be at the really high level AI technical, like point yet, but it's to explain to them how does the human interface with the technology and how that basically is the same thing they've been doing, but just better. So I think that we do need to sometimes slow down as institutions and provide that training, provide that explanatory bridge, you could say, so that they feel that this is not really a complete revolution, that you're destroying the past to replace it with something else, but you're just basically building on what is already there, which is how artificial intelligence works, which is building on knowledge of other people who came before them. That's the way I view it.
I would agree. And I would say leading any change, especially technological disruption, what is it in it for them? Why do they benefit? I had a use case where I was trying to explain, basic LLM use to a colleague who was anti-AI, because there's true phobias and many are worthy of being phobias. Others are probably just hype and things that we shouldn't worry so much about. But with that being said, this is a reality, and you can't force anyone to drink water, right? You can lead the horse to the water, but you can't force them. But I think you're right, Dr. Otto. You show them how to summarize an email or do a synopsis on email, and now that long email they never read, they can read now. Then
Yes.
they're interested in AI. Yeah, Juan Carlos, please just jump in.
Yeah, if I may, I have a good
Yeah.
example of what Dr. Otto is mentioning. What we have done actually successfully with some conferences that we've imparted recently is, look at this example. It's interesting. We gave a conference to this workforce of operational managers in a very big brand in Mexico, which has licenses of fast food or big brands, etc. Half of the conference was about what we call biointelligence, which will be the science of behavior, right? From a biological standpoint, like genetics, neuroscience, psychology, etc., which is, of course, super interesting, but it's theoretical, right? And consider we were talking to operative managers. So, of course, they were like, okay, that sounds really interesting. So what, right? What the hell do we do with this? The second part of the conference, we developed an agent that put all this knowledge that combined, iterated with their thoughts, represented an agent that could create a strategy for them in 1 minute with all the biointelligence and their what I call intuitive notes. So they will say something like, these are my objectives, this is what I think will work, this is what I think it won't work, this is my experience, this is my opinion, whatever, which is very important in an operative position. And then the agent would do its work and develop a whole operative strategy with biointelligence in 3 minutes. When they saw this, they were like, oh my, like, what is this magic, right? What is happening? So that's an example, putting agents in the hands of people to help them do better whatever they're good to do already. it has it has no precedence. Like, this is a paradigm that is changing very profoundly the very deep structure of all institutions and areas and etc. So what Dr. Otto said about making tools that are actually practical for the everyday of every person, this is basic. And we can do that with agents now. Like, give people agents. It's that's the trick, I think.
Well, and I think that's a perfect segue to the next question. And I would agree. Showing how tools can make what you already do that much more efficient, that much more productive. You don't have to give up your IP. So if you're working on something and it's going to be proprietary, you're going to market with, I don't need to know. So please don't tell me, because this is a global podcast. But I'm curious because, again, you gentlemen are at the forefront of this technology and education. If you were to build something in education today with AI that's going to bring the greatest benefit to the greatest amount of stakeholders, what would you start working on? I'll kick it to, I think Dr. Otto's ready to go. Let's go with Dr. Otto first.
A difficult question. Uh, but I would say that, at least from my perspective, is the policy. You need to have guardrails. And I think that even AI can help us with policy building, like to see the drawbacks, the alternatives, the cost benefit analysis. So I think that even AI can help us learn how to control it, how to use it for us to truly become better versions of ourselves without actually making us dependent and lazy, which is, also a possibility when it comes to this. So that is what I'm focusing on. I mean, I think it's very interesting, that nexus between policymaking, electronic governance. I think is also a very interesting application of AI, and it's going to allow the government to interact in a much better way with people in general, with constituents. So I think that for me, that is a key project right now.
Well, and if you could figure that out, Dr. Otto, you would be a hero amongst all common folk, because electronic governance and a connection to, say, stakeholders isn't always there. But also, to your point, I think that AI provides a unique opportunity to use it as I call it a pocket consultant. And there are many modes like Grok and Perplexity. They have a consult mode where you can actually debate ideas with agents. And that's going to, as you know, American governance was situated on muddling through and compromise. Well, you can build that environment and that ecosystem within the AI tool that you're writing legislation or writing policy structures. I think that's a great use case. I love that. All right, Juan Carlos, that's tough to follow. So you're up next.
For sure. Well, I can share a project I'm working on. It has to do with what I mentioned before, the formula of creativity. I call this the System 3 method, which is a pedagogical tool, which basically recognizes how we learn and provides a model to learn better. And it has a lot to do with how we create in terms of creativity, because we learn in very similar ways than we do our creative processes. For example, what I mentioned before, when we learn something, for example, when we memorize in neurobiological terms, usually depends on two variables. Number one will be the frequency, how often this, whatever we learned, we have been able to be exposed to. And number two is the emotional intensity. How intense does this made me feel? Does it like represented an eureka and made me feel really good or really bad? It also works. Like, that's why it's emotional intensity. It can have both positive or negative balance. Okay. So when we learn or we remember, emotional phenomena is important. Instinctual phenomena is important. rational also too, but that's what we always focus on, right? And we forget that this learning or creative process is very intuitive, that includes emotional processes, sentient processes, etc. So what I call system three, system three method, basically has to do with understanding that if we want to remember or learn or be creative, we need to connect with the preconscious processes through intuitive dimensions like emotions, like sentiments, like instincts. And we have to understand the process. We always generate first, generation, stochastic generation, idea pool. Number two, reflection. We need to focus rationally. Number three, iterate. Like we need to polish ideas. Think of what we do when we work in a team. First, we say, okay, ideas from everyone. Come on, give me your idea pool. Then we think rationally about such ideas, right? And then we decide if we need to explore a little bit more or focus a little bit more. That would be the iteration. We also have integration, which will be like integrate ideas, but in all modes, like your gut feeling has information. That gut feeling, when you combine it with a rational thought, that's integration, and that's meaningful, because we often think that intuition is not relevant, especially in front of the AI systems that have like this big rational capacity. No, but they don't have the information, the knowledge, the learnings that we have adopted for more than 4,000 million years of evolution, which are manifested in 1 second through our gut feeling. So these intuitive ideas are very important. So that's iteration and integration. And then meta control, which is metacognition. It can be implicit, it can be explicit. Implicit would be like you don't notice it's happening, like when you liberate dopamine, for example. And explicit will be like consciously saying, let's explore more ideas, or let's focus more on these ideas. Once we understand this, we can develop methods. Like I developed this through an agent, for example, a web app for my child that is 6-year-old. And this is, and with this, I finish this intervention. This is a very practical example, or didactical. What the app does is basically, it teaches you how to read. He has 6 years now. He's 6 years old. So what this does is take a picture of a toy, right? With that picture, the app or the tutor, the AI tutor, because it interacts with you, will create a story that includes the toy and the kid's name and the kid's photo that it's already in the profile. So with this, you're connecting with the emotional dimension. You are connecting the intuition. You are making this fun, not also repetitive, right? And then the story, you read it out loud, and the AI tutor will correct you on the go. If you read a word incorrectly or whatever, it will teach you. And the kid is really excited about finishing, because when they finish, they can do another one with another toy. I have never heard a kid, and until now with my boy, say something like, please, can I read? Can you imagine this? Like, and then I just kid with him, like, yes, but first you need to see TV 10 minutes, then you can read. But we have managed to do this like all the way around. And he reads perfectly now in both English and Spanish through this app, which is not something just curious or trivial. It has its foundations on how we learn, on how we create, how we remember. So when you combine biointelligence, like human cognition, with these tools of AI, you have a really, really, really potent weapon to take education to the very next level with kids and with adults too. So that would be my idea.
I love it. I after the podcast, I'm gonna have to ask you for the name of that app. My
I'll give you a
my
user.
7-year-old and I vibe coded an app together called Unicorn Math Quest, but that sounds more exciting. So I'm gonna have to ask you for that. Well,
You'll
last
see.
question, gentlemen, and I'll make sure to end the hostage situation. I appreciate you being an incredible guest. It is my belief, or at least what I see, that AI has the potential to disrupt and eliminate essentially the linguistic differences, maybe even flatten the cultural differences that exist between different stakeholders in different countries. In academia, what do you see as the implications of that, where now you can vibe code an app, toggle it, and it teaches in any language, for example? So Dr. Otto and then Juan Carlos, if you could close us with that thought.
Yeah, I think it has great potential in that respect. I mean, you can work with academics all over the world now, and language is definitely not a barrier for translation. It's amazing. As an anthropologist, though, one thing that does concern me is that language is not exactly the same thing as culture. And I think that, of course, the technology is still adapting to this, and culture is so diverse all over the world that even the way that we use language in one part of one country or among one sociocultural group is going to vary from the rest. So I am a little concerned that this is going to standardize language a little bit too much. But you know, every technology has an initial danger, and I think that's a danger. But the potential is amazing. I mean, like how this can open doors. People who may be great scientists, but they're not great writers, now can write the reports with the aid of this. And of course, you know, intercultural communication can be aided by this too.
I appreciate that. I love the promise and also the warning. So thank you for the very thoughtful answer. And Juan Carlos, please.
Sure. The pro for sure is that one, that you're able to generate and integrate new ideas from all around the world. Um, this is very powerful. This is very powerful. This is how civilizations have been forged, for sure. Integrating ideas from other cultures. So this is a fast track pathway, right? AI giving this universal language, because now whatever language you're speaking, now we are speaking a universal language through coding, right? So that would be the pro. The cons, as Dr. Otto mentions, is very relevant. This has to do with what I call life first telos, meaning that right now we have a purpose crisis. Um, Very few understand what are we doing as humans, as individuals, as collective. Like, what is the main purpose of AI or culture or whatever, or learning, right? So what I have documented academically is what I call life first telos, which is basically the first derivative of any technology that we use, including um, reason, creativity, of course, AI, because I call creativity and reason a technology because it's a technique that we use in order to accomplish a purpose. In this case, to protect life. Why does emotions exist? Why does reason exist? Creativity, the mind, genes, etc. Because it gives life better chances to resist and prevail against entropy, that is taking everything to chaos, destruction, lack of organization, etc. So when we recognize this, we can understand that with AI, the important thing is that we have to make sure that it is protecting life in all its manifestations, that it's actually giving in order to resist and prevail against entropy. That's what I call life first telos. And how do you do this? For sure, with novelty, that's an important part of evolving with new things, utility, reasoning, and making things useful. But number three, really important in the AI era, diversity. Without diversity, we have nothing. With the evolution depends, protecting life depends on diversity. And AI, there's a lot of studies, a lot of several peer-reviewed articles that are that document how AI tends to homogenize the thinking. So we need to protect that. It seems trivial, but it's not, because it's a meta level, right? Maybe an idea in an LLM can seem novel, but it won't, but maybe it's not diverse, because that same novel answer gets standardized over and over again. And in a long term, and from a general perspective, diversity is as important as novelty and as usefulness. This I call the NUD model, to measure creativity and, in other words, our chances to evolve, to protect life, etc. So I think that as long as we understand that and we have this in our sight, we're going to be okay. Easier to say it than to do it, for sure, but at least we know where to go, right?
Well, I think we all are in agreement. We understand the need for progress. We understand the power of this technology, but it's absolutely essential to safeguard what makes humans uniquely human, the culture, the language, the things that AI really shouldn't and can't replicate so easily. Well, I thank you, gentlemen, so much. Dr. Feigenblatt, Mr. Juan Carlos Chavez, you are all amazing. We really appreciate you lending your thoughts on this episode of Keiser plus AI. Ladies, gentlemen, and scholars, we look forward to seeing you next week. Again, I am your host, Robert Keiser. We will see you again. Thank you.